So we have 2 more lectures that we were meant to do this week. I'm really happy that we spent a lot of extra time on Python to kind of go through it a bit more, particularly given a lot of the questions people had, which are good questions. We have this testing lecture, so what I'm going to do with that is I'm just going to record that one and upload that like later today. So I'll just record that today and upload it tonight or something like that. But we'll have a quick chat through iteration 1 for the last 5 or 10 minutes, just because this is kind of important. So again, testing. I will record that later today. I'll actually probably live stream it too. I'll post on the Discord for people if they want to come along. You don't have to come along. It's just like I know some people want to, but so I'll just record that later today. I understand that that's slightly more than 4 hours of lectures this week too. But I'll make up for it by we'll just do less lectures in the latter weeks. It's better that you learn more in the early weeks when you really need the knowledge. So, okay, so very, very brief chat on iteration 1. Now, most of the information in this is not going to be in these slides. It's going to be in the spec. So what you should really do this week, it's in a notice. You can go, the CSE Discord server's in a notice. It's not an official channel. It's not run by me. It's just like, I don't want to send a notice to 700 students when 20 will come. So your project is in a repo like this. It's not this URL. Yours will be inside of your projects here. You'll be able to find it. Like I don't know where, most people wouldn't have pushed to it yet, but you'll be able to find it floating around Git, and you'll be in this group with other team members. You should take the time to read through this entire specification, right? You don't need me to spend half an hour sitting and like reading out to you. You're all competent readers. So we'll talk more about the specifics of the spec in a sec. But structurally, how it works is that we've released a milestone or an iteration today, and then it is due on the Monday of week 4 at like 10 a.m. or something. The first part of the project, when it's due on that Monday of week 4, during your lab that week, you will then basically have a little interview or demo with your tutor for 20 minutes, right? So it's like you have this iteration 1 now, it's due in week 4. You go and talk to your tutor about it in week 4. They give you a mark for the first iteration. And then we release the second milestone that week, right? Iteration milestone, those words are used interchangeably. Instead of having 3 weeks for milestone 1, for milestone 2, we give you 4 weeks. That's then due at the start of week 8. And then a similar thing in week 8, you have a little meeting with your tutor where they essentially interview you and you demo it. It's like a presentation. It's a bit more informal. And then we release a third milestone, which you have 2 weeks to do, which is then due in week 10, that you also demo with your tutor. So the project is made up of 3 key milestones. The first milestone is very basic. We ask you to write some Python functions and we ask you to test some Python functions. You can do most of iteration 1 with the knowledge that we teach you in week 1. Some things you'll need to, some things you'll miss though. For iteration 2, we get you focused on building an actual web server and doing a lot more code writing and a lot more testing. And then for iteration 3, there's more code writing and testing again, but we ask you to do some more interesting things where we want you to do the deployment part of the software development lifecycle and also looking back at more requirements. But largely speaking, the way this project is structured is that iteration 1, you start building it. Iteration 2, you build it even more. Iteration 3, you build it even more. Out like that. The project has been released to you. It's in your GitLab repo. We've created MS Teams for you. In fact, I'm part of all of your MS Teams now, which is super exciting for me. here you go. These are all your teams. You can just go log into Microsoft Teams. There's a link in the repo. You just log in with your student number and your ZPass, and you'll be able to go to your team and see your team members in there. I don't want to click on one of them because I don't know what people have posted. If you don't see your team, there's a chance it's because you've enrolled late or some other issue. So if you don't see your team, talk to your tutor about it during your tute this week. They will put you in your team and stuff like this. All of your team issues will be sorted out in your tute lab this week by your tutor. Okay? So they'll all be sorted out there. Every team, there's 5 teams in a class, 3 to 5. They're all named Aero, Dorito, Blinker, Cactus, and Echo. Just random names because that's more fun than like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I said before, we'll cover more useful knowledge for iteration 1 in week 2. So most of the lectures in week 1 are really critical for iteration 1, and you'll find the things in week 2 also useful, though you don't have to wait to start. Iteration 1's pretty much all week 1 and 2 content, but you can absolutely start the project now. You don't have to wait till next week. So that's good news for you. And just expect, as I mentioned yesterday, for there to be some turbulence with group changes because groups are being formed this week, which is a little bit unstable. Now, just a quick comment on group work. People always say, I don't like group work. I don't like working with people I don't know. The short answer I have for you on all of this is like, it doesn't matter what you like. It doesn't matter what I like. The world doesn't care what you like. The world is the world, and the world requires you as software engineers in the vast majority of cases to work with other people. Every job I've had to work with people that I don't like very much. But like, that is how the real world works. And the point of this course is to give you some of the early, I guess, learning experiences and opportunities to actually start to navigate that world, right? University is the most isolated you will ever work again in the rest of your life, likely, because if you're writing real software, you'll always be working with other people in the vast majority of cases. So it's very important. I remember someone said to me once, the reason school is valuable instead of homeschooling is not because it helps you make friends, it's because it helps you meet people that you don't like. And you have to navigate that world. So, yeah. Also, some of you will kind of be in a mindset where like your way of programming is just, I'm just going to like do what I want. I'm just going to plow through. Everyone has to follow. Working in teams is super important because it helps you learn how to compromise and work with other people. I remember there's a great Obama quote. I mean, who doesn't love Obama? Where's Obama? Good old Obama. I'm not sure if he's quoting someone else, but he has this quote, which I'm pretty sure is something along the lines of, democracy is about learning to compromise even when you're 100% right. And I think a lot is true in teamwork as well. It doesn't matter if you know you're right about something. What matters is how you can actually get along with other people, and learn to work with them. This is a slide that I think is kind of important. Which is just like, if you get a chance, I know that like 1% of you would do this, but it's okay. It's all right. We're about to finish up. So see you, Miguel. But try and write down what you're actually, I guess, like what you're scared of with this coming term, what you're most looking forward to. Just write this down somewhere, and I'd love to ask a few of you about it in the coming weeks. Just to see what, how you feel about things and what was different to what you expected. So if anyone cares, I'd love for you to do that. And, I can ask you in a few weeks, like, I'd love to know if what's different. Like, is what people looked forward to different, or is what people were scared of different? So yeah, we'll get to that. Now, what's going to happen, just for those that are still here, I want to wrap up because it's 12 o'clock, which really matters. So again, I know that we're running a lot of lecture this week, which is kind of annoying because we only have 4 hours of slots, but I think it's really critical. What's going to happen is that I'm going to finish finish this lecture now for about 10 minutes. I don't mind if you're here or you go away, but I just want to talk about the project briefly, and then later today I will record the what's it called? I'll record the 1.5 lecture, right? So we're going to do a little bit more on this now. So if you're heading off, just come watch the last 10 minutes of this later. Or you can hang around. I don't want this to go on forever. But I don't want people to feel like they have to stay because it's all recorded anyway. But it'd be better to tie it into this lecture just to talk about the project. So if you head off, I'll see you in the recording later. Otherwise, we'll keep going through this now. And then expect this to be uploaded later today, the testing one. Again, I'm sorry. I wish I had 5 hours of lectures. There's just a lot to cover at the start of this course. All right, so iteration 1. This was kind of the high level of it. The only thing I'm going to be talking about for the rest of this is the spec. So we're just going to go through the spec. Now, what's in this specification? You can go read this as well. There's nothing particularly exciting here. Basically, there are 3 iterations in this, which the first one we're doing now and the second 2 we're not worried about. The meat of the spec is in sections 3 and 4, 5, and 6, but just 3 and 6. But let's go through it. So we have some aims or learning outcomes here. Super exciting. Nothing crazy there. That's all just from the course outline. But let's actually have a look at what this project is about. So in 2020, UNSW migrated to trimesters, which most of you now are probably was just part of your normal... 19? I think it was 2019. God, it's been a while. 2019. So as part of the trimester transition, UNSW has established a new focus on building an in-house digital collaboration and communication tool at the uni itself, right? Now, rather than reinvent the wheel, which is kind of ironic, UNSW has decided that they want to build their own communication tool. They want to reinvent the wheel in some ways because they want to build their own communication tool, but they don't want to have to rethink everything about how it works. So they want to model it off Microsoft Teams. And this is the same tool that you've been invited to for your project. So what UNSW's done is they've contracted out a company which is run by me. Obviously, this is fictional, if you haven't figured that out by now, to build this product. And what they want this product to be called is UNSW Dreams, right? UNSW Dreams is a communication tool that allows you to share communication and collaborate to make dreams a reality. Not my line, that's fictional UNSW's line. But the way it works is that when UNSW comes to me and they say, we want you to build this thing for me, I can't build it myself because I'm just one person. So what I do as part of this is I'm going to subcontract out with 2 different groups. One of them is Blue Bottle, which is 2 developers, Andrea and Andrew, who are also fictional characters, but just pretend that they're tutors or something. And the other one is your team, which is a team of talented misfits completing 1531. And how it's going to work is that Blue Bottle, Andrew and Andrea are going to be building the front end, like a website basically, and that you and your team are going to be building a back end, like a web server. That's where we want to end up in the end. So by the end of the term, there will be a web app that your team can use to essentially do your teamwork instead of Microsoft Teams, right? So basically, it's kind of like a copy of Microsoft Teams. Why do we copy that? Because it's easier for you to understand what's happening when you can actually play around with something that's real. You know what I mean? Like, it's better than just making up some fictional thing that doesn't exist, because then it's hard to visualize. Whereas if we give you this, it's kind of easier to picture. Me, the company, Penguin, basically, we've already met with the front-end people, and we've established a common interface. So how this kind of works is that you might work with a front-end and a back-end team, and you sit down and you figure out what functions are needed for this website to run. Because a front end, like a web page, calls functions. And a web server provides functions, right? And that's how they interact all the time. So before this project has started for you, I've already worked with Andrew and Andrea to figure out what that interface is. And we've defined that already. So that's not something that you've done. I'd love for you to do that. I think it's a super cool exercise. It's just, for the sake of auto marking, you all kind of need to work to the same interface, which is kind of sad, but it's a lot easier in some ways. We want a bunch of basic functionality to exist in this UNSW Dreams app. You don't need to read this right now. It's pretty much just like all the basic features, sharing things. And this is a general list. This is not like a list you need to like sweat over. You just read it once and be like, oh, cool. That's all the general functionality we'll have. So that's the high level idea of what the project is over the next 9 weeks. Now, all of this talk about web servers and front ends does not come in until iteration 2, right? Iteration 2 is where that stuff exists. Iteration 1 is very, very straightforward. It has nothing to do with front ends. It has nothing to do with web servers. So iteration 1 is about writing some basic functionality and tests. Now, again, I don't want to dictate this whole thing to you, but basically, let me scroll down past section 3 and let's go to section 6. Iteration 1 requires you to define, to implement a bunch of functions. To make a communication tool work, there's a bunch of functions that need to work. You need to be able to log in, you need to be able to register, you need to be able to invite, you need to be able to get details, you need to be able to get messages, you need to be able to join a channel, right? It's a lot like Discord, Slack, these other tools. You need to be able to get lists of channels that exist, you need to be able to get all the lists, blah, blah, blah. It kind of goes on for a while. Now, this seems like a lot of functions, but as part of iteration 1, we're actually only asking you to implement some of them. So section 6 here is really the Bible of the project, where it tells you what you have to, like the requirements that you have to build to. It tells you the function names, it tells you the parameters of those functions, it tells you the return types of those functions, it tells you the errors that those functions have to deal with. Now, if we go back to our iteration 1 section here, it says that in iteration 1, we expect you to write tests and implement the basic functions of Dreams, UNSW Dreams. And what that means is that we want you to write the Python code, and we also want you to write the testing code in Python to actually make that happen. And we only want you to have to do it on any of the functions that start with auth, channel, and channels. Now, again, I know this might feel like a lot, and it might feel like I'm skimming over a lot, but part of the learning of this project as well is for you to actually sit down with your group this week or on the weekend or next week and make sense of this together, right? This is not, you're not in first term, first year where we need to baby you with anything. We want to treat you like adults, and we want to treat your team like an adult team where you can actually sort these things out together. But iteration 1 is writing code and writing tests for code, fundamentally. That's what 3.1 largely describes. 3.2 kind of describes to you how to actually go about it with Git and branches and other things. This is not. This is something that you should maybe look at later. To fully make sense of this, you'll need to obviously watch the testing lecture, and then also our first lecture next week will also help out with that. But basically, it's more than just writing code and tests. We want you to actually go about it in a certain process, methodical kind of way. There's a certain file structure we want you to adhere to when you're making these files. We've actually already stubbed this code for you. In fact, if you go up here in your group repo, you'll see that there's 2 folders called source and test. And we've actually already written the functions in here for you. like this. They're already in here. So the main ones, auth, channel, message, channels, they're all kind of there. And then there's a test folder as well where you're going to write your test. So we've provided that structure to you already. Section 3.3.1 and point 2 and point 3 and stuff, these things you can read through in your own time. They're basically giving you a bit more background on some of the implementations you have to do. Section 3.4 tells you about how to store data in this assignment, which isn't too hard, and we'll also talk a bit about that next week. And there's some more stuff. Now, in terms of the criteria for iteration 1, it's pretty straightforward. 35% of your marks come from automarks. We automark your tests and we automark your implementation. 20% of your marks come from the quality of your code, as in a tutor reviews your code and is like, is this logical? Is this well thought out? Is this messy? It's not quite style. It's a little bit more designy, but very light. 20% of your mark comes from how well you use Git, right? We expect you to have good Git commit names. We expect you to have good merge requests. 15% of your mark comes from, are you following good project management strategies, which we also talk about more next week as well. Like, are you meeting up regularly? Are you using Taskboard to keep track of tasks, etc.? And 10% of it comes from a list of assumptions that you all write down. Okay? And that's kind of iteration 1. So there's actually quite a lot of non-coding stuff. About half of your mark comes from stuff that has nothing to do with code specifically. Like Git, if you don't count Git as code. Eric has asked, do we have the same project across groups? Yes, you do. That's how it works for the term. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. If you go further down to the on the specification, you'll see that we outline all of the due dates and the weightings for each iteration. So iteration 1's worth 30%. It's due on the Monday of week 4. There's no late penalties in this. There is a hard deadline. If you don't submit it by that deadline, then nothing. We will mark your last submission before the deadline, right? So we take all of your code at 10 a.m. on that Monday, and it doesn't matter what you do after 10 a.m. That's what we take. There's a whole bunch of practical reasons for this. You have to demo it that week. We have to release more iterations. We can talk about that in depth later, but you'll have to trust me that I know what I'm doing, and late penalties don't work in this course. Okay, so there's more here. Again, I could spend 45 minutes reading it out to you, but I just want to tie off this lecture because we'll do questions in a sec. But I just want to tie it off with a bit of understanding of the timeline, right? So this is due on Monday of week 4. That's a while away. It's the second day of term, right? Monday of week 4 is in like 20 days. It's been 1 day since we started this course. So for anyone who looks at this spec and is either overwhelmed by the size of it or is overwhelmed by the fact that they don't know their group members yet and therefore they feel like they can't start, let me just give you some comfort. The way that we go about this is that we assume that you will all spend this week just trying to settle in and get to know your group members. You'll go to your tutes and your labs, your tutors will help you organize stuff and sort out MS Teams and all this stuff. And you will spend this week just getting settled. Think of this week as like a social week in terms of your group project. All we want you to do is to, by the end of this week, by Friday night, we want you to know who's in your group. We want you to have talked to them on Microsoft Teams. We want you to know where your GitLab repo is, and we want you to start reading through the spec, because there's a lot to read through. I would strongly recommend that every group go and read through the spec separately. Like if you have 5 people in your group, go read through the spec, organize a meeting on, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, where you all come at it and you come at it with questions, right? You all write down questions you have and you come together and you see if you can answer your own questions, each other's questions. Yeah. And then what you should do is in your head, you should really aim to start coding next week, I think. I think if you put any expectation on yourself to code this week, it's going to stress people out because you're going to be like, oh, I don't know who is in my group. I don't know. I haven't learned a couple of things that I need, blah, blah, blah. You're going to get really stressed out. There really is a couple of things next Monday's lecture that is quite useful for starting the assignment. that you'll want to know about. So, yeah, I would very much, like most of you will want to learn some extra things on Monday. It's not like you can't start it now. It's just it helps understand a few more things. So I would say that this week, priority, be social, wait till your tute and lab. Your tutor will help you find your group, get to know the people, and just get ready to start coding next week. For 4 or 5 people, 2 weeks to code, iteration 1 is plenty. So that's why we give you 3 whole weeks with it, because we're happy to let you spend one of those weeks like trying to just settle in. What will we do in the lab this week? You'll do the lab. Like this week's lab is really just 2 things. It's like getting your group settled and doing Labo 1. So you will have your lab assist there this week to help you with the lab, and you will have your tutor there to help you form your groups. And I guess just the last comment on labs and stuff, the way this course works with tute labs are a little bit different in the sense that during your tutes and labs, we'll pretty much always have you in a little breakout room with your group, pretty much always with your group, and your tutor and lab assist will separately move between the groups to sort things out. So your tutor will explain this all to you, later, but it's slightly different, but it'll all be fine. So head to your labs this week. You can start lab 1. That is some work you have to do this week. Your tutor will help you out with the project. So it's really not that different from other courses. It's just a major project. Does anyone have any last questions before we wrap up? Again, I'd love to talk about this for like hours, but it's just not a good use of lecture time because it's all written here. Like we've spent a lot of time writing it so that you can go and read it, not so that I have to repeat it to you. But yeah, any last questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. The SDLC testing lecture, it'll be sometime this afternoon. I'll just have to find time for it. And I'll just post on Discord for those who are bored and want to come along. Will tutors help us with Git? Will we need to learn Python by ourselves? Okay, I mean, yes, your tutors will help you with Git. They'll help you with Python. They're here to help you this term. My broad point is that in a course like 1511, it's really very much like, it's kind of like people are like super supported on everything they do. Whereas we really need you as software engineers in this course to start be a bit more comfortable with just teaching yourself things. And what I mean by that is, I taught a little bit of slices here, right? And it's like, we taught slices. Your tutor will help you with this. But it's like, you're going to have to get comfortable asking yourself like, oh, I wonder what char's -2 to -4 does. Play around with it. Google it. Like, take a bit of ownership over like your own learning. But you're not going to feel like you're completely out of your depth. It's not like you're just like in the deep end figuring stuff out. Like, we have teaching staff, we have help sessions. It's just we can't teach you everything. We can get all the basics and moderate stuff done, and you'll just have to help you carry yourself that last bit. Carol asked, you mentioned the use of taskboard. Is that the issues function on GitLab? Yeah, it is, and we'll talk more about that on Monday. Which is why I say most groups will just want to spend the rest of this week getting settled and finishing Lab 1, and then really start hitting it hard on Monday. If groups are comfortable with lots of stuff, you can get started now. I'm just saying, for the average group, you're probably just going to want to settle in this week and start on Monday. You can start earlier, but don't stress yourself out. This is not designed to be a hard course. Anyway, have a great day. I'll talk to you all on Monday. And keep an eye out for the last lecture to appear today. It'll appear sometime. Lab 1 is due Monday morning, and you have to demonstrate it in your week 2 lab. Oh God, yes, just before everyone runs away, I forgot to do that for the Python one. Oh my God. Okay, let me stop the recording. Sorry.